بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful, may the peace and blessings of Allah the Exalted be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his purified progeny, and may the damnation of Allah be upon their enemies. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue our discussion about the Arsh, the throne of Allah Azza wa Jal. And in the last episode we spoke about the verse Ar-Rahman ala al-Arsh istawa, that the Beneficent established himself on the throne. We negated the Mujassima interpretation, where they say that Allah Azza wa Jal is literally sitting on the throne and being carried. And we said that this verse can refer to the power and dominance of Allah Azza wa Jal over the whole of creation. And we quoted one hadith which would indicate this, as well as linguistic examples and a verse of the Holy Quran showing that when one takes the throne, they have a control and power. They have control and power over a kingdom or over something. So we said that this can be the meaning of this verse. And again, just to point out, when we say that this is a meaning of the Arsh, it doesn't restrict it, because Arsh can be in different contexts. We can say it both applies in a non-physical sense and a physical sense of something being the Arsh. But in this verse, it's possible that yes, it's talking about Allah Azza wa Jal having this authority over creation, as this narration said, attribute to Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, over the small things, the minute things and the big things. So that is what we said about this verse. Let's come to other verses. Chapter 40, verse 7. It says, الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. And then we go to the other verse 17 of chapter 69. وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ. So, and the angels are at its edges. That's a part of the verse before. And they will bear the throne of your Lord above them. That day, 8 of them. So who does 8 of them refer to? So when we see these verses, the first one being those who carry the throne, and those around it exalt Allah and praise Allah, and then those bearing the throne, there will be 8. What do we understand of this? So is this a physical throne which is being carried? Because we get the images of angels carrying a throne of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we have a hadith which mention the following verse with an interpretation of it. So is it the same verse where it's metaphorical, or does it indicate physicality? Let us look into this, inshallah ta'ala. So about these verses of this Arsh being carried, one of the interpretations is in regard to knowledge. The knowledge which is being carried by the prophets and the successors. Some of the hadith mention this, that the Arsh refers to knowledge, and this is knowledge which is being carried by the prophets and successors. The second is one narration which I've seen, which mentions knowledge carried by the scholars, the ulama, those who propagate the religion. And then the third, that angels carry this Arsh, or some portion of this Arsh, is what other narrations mention. So we can say the first one of it being knowledge, it's type of esoteric interpretation of the verses. It mentions carrying of the Arsh in this context means knowledge. Let's read the following narration. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, so the Hamlatul Arsh, the carriers of the Arsh, wal Arshul Ilm Thamaniya. So the carriers of the Arsh and the knowledge are 8. And then after that he goes on to say, Arba'atun minna wa arba'atun mimman sha Allah. That 4 of these are from us, and the rest are whoever Allah will choose. So who are these 4 from them, and the ones who Allah wishes? So it doesn't mention the rest, but we have the ulama who have commented on this. So we've got a type of esoteric interpretation where it interprets Arsh as being knowledge. So Sheikh Saduq says about this knowledge that's being carried, so the Arsh meaning knowledge. He says the Arsh, which means knowledge, is borne by 4 amongst the ancients and 4 amongst the later ones, so the previous prophets, and then the later ones after that, the successors. The former ones are Noah, Abraham, Ibrahim, Musa, Moses, and Jesus, Isa, on all of whom be peace. And the later, so he mentions the last seal of the prophets, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ali, Hassan, and Hussein, blessings of Allah be upon them. This is what has been handed down from the Imams by authentic chains of authorities concerning the throne and its bearers. So Sheikh Saduq comments that the knowledge being carried relates to previous prophets and then later the successors. That the Arsh, the throne, refers to this knowledge which has been transferred to them. And perhaps the meaning of them being carriers of knowledge, or this Arsh, this type of knowledge, relates to Qiyamah. On the Day of Judgment, they will carry out certain orders from Allah Azza wa Jal, and even the prophets, some of them, will weigh the sins according to some narrations. And in order to do that, they need this type of knowledge. But exactly what this knowledge is, we don't know. But they've been transferred this knowledge to, of course, carry out the tasks of Allah Azza wa Jal from the previous prophets and then from the Imams and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who we can say inherited the perfect knowledge. So they inherited all of this knowledge from the previous prophets to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then after that the Imams inherited this perfect knowledge from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of it being the unseen. And we say this is why they knew some matters of the unseen, because they inherited this knowledge from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we could say being carriers of the knowledge perhaps refers to having to carry out tasks by Allah Azza wa Jal's command, and this is why they've been given this knowledge, because in order to carry out some of these commands you need to have the ilm. So it seems Sheikh Saduq took some of these narrations which mention the prophets, because the authentic one in Al-Kafi did not mention the names of the prophets after that. However, we have narrations, for example, in Ta'wil al-Ayat, a narration said to be from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, which says that regarding the words of Allah Azza wa Jal, those who are holding the throne and ones around it. So chapter 40 verse 7, he alayhi salam said meaning Muhammad and Ali and Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, and then Nuh, Noah, Ibrahim, Musa and Isa, meaning that they are the ones who are around the throne, the Arsh. So again, they are the ones who carry this type of knowledge according to some of the narrations. So the authentic one mentions what? It mentions that the carriers of the knowledge and the ilm are 8, 4 of these are from us, and the rest are whoever Allah Azza wa Jalla chooses. So we have this authentic narration, and other narrations elaborate more on who the names are. And of course Sheikh Saduq, it seems he took these narrations because he mentions that these are also the prophets and the successors who inherit this type of knowledge. So again, for those who carry the Arsh, or the 8 which will carry the Arsh of Allah Azza wa Jal, it refers, according to one esoteric interpretation, that it is knowledge given to the prophets and the successors. So as a recap, we said that Arsh can refer to Allah's control, authority. Arsh also can refer to knowledge which has been carried by some of the prophets and the successors. And what we'll do in the next clip is look what Arsh means when it talks about Allah's throne being upon water. So what was this signification according to narrations that we have? And again, there's many narrations on this topic. It can be quite complicated. I discussed this topic with a few different scholars, and of course, again, we have different interpretations of what Arsh can be. Some sticking to particular interpretations, others explaining them in different ways. So let us explain, inshallah ta'ala, the next verse in the next clip about the Arsh being upon water. And again, as we said, the prophets and the successors carried the type of knowledge which pertained to the guidance of humanity, or was a type of special knowledge given to them which they conveyed to the creation. And holding this knowledge is even a bigger responsibility, because as we know, they get this knowledge directly and they receive it from Allah Azza wa Jalla and have to convey it in the correct way. So it's a type of responsibility and honor that they have to be carriers of the knowledge. Again, these verses are being looked at in one perspective, and as we know, others may come and say, no, these verses can also indicate other things of a physical Arsh. But we have given these narrations regarding about carrying the knowledge being the arsh. So join us for the next episode, inshallah ta'ala. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum wal a'da.